What I do want to talk about is more about the political leadership that we have on both sides of the divide. We have stories taking place in the House, in the Senate, and we have stories taking place in the White House in regards to the various players who will be determining the actual politics as we move forward. And all of those players, it seems to me, were in a room together this week and were in front of the press. And it was a bit of a spectacle. It was one of those moments where you sort of all at once think like, this is ridiculous. Who cares about this? And then like, oh my God, our politics that, and I think this is in general, politics are just not that different from like a middle school or junior high school fight that's taking place at recess. And I'm talking about that moment where the cameras were there and saw Trump and Pelosi and Schumer get into it. I mean, let's start with there. Oh, and I should say, and you wrote about this, there was another guy there. He never comes up in conversation, and that seems to be a problem for the Trump administration. And I'm talking about Mike Pence.
Yeah, it was really something. I think I wrote about it for Salon, and my thought was that this is like that they were teasing the new season of the Trump show, the Trump reality show, and this was sort of the highlights that you see like on the Real Housewives of the fights that they get into every single season, and who's the villain, who's the good guy, who's sort of sitting on the sidelines, and that's really how it felt. Now, that's not to say that it isn't very, very serious, because of course it is. And it showed exactly what I think it gave to us a sense of what the dynamics are going to be. I mean, first of all, Donald Trump it showed his ignorance more obviously in that than ever. I mean, not that he doesn't do it every day on his Twitter feed or in his press appearances, but in this case, as he's sitting there, he had actually people, instead of the usual sycophantic Republicans, applauding like a bunch of trained seals for everything he says and laughing and smiling and telling him how great he was, he had two people there who were actually challenging him. So, the fight was kind of face to face, which isn't something that we see. Normally there's a sort of distance between it. And that was quite interesting. And both of the Democratic leaders, took a really, pretty aggressive stance against a couple of things that are important. Pelosi, in particular, took a stand against Trump's insistence on facts that aren't true. That seemed to be her main thrust, which is we're not going to be dealing with this fantasy that you keep saying. And, of course, Trump went way out on a limb by saying that they'd caught 10 terrorists at the border, that the wall was partially built. I mean, he was saying just insane things.
It was almost, he was just saying things that were jumping into his head at the time, like medical issues and 10 terrorists, which is not, even the lies that we heard from Pence in the run-up to the election, nobody threw that number out. It was just a number. It was completely made up.
It's true, and he said these things that just, I mean, they were just blatant lies. And I think you're right. I certainly got the sense that he was just coming up with this. I mean, normally you can trace some of his lies to something he heard on Fox News that morning, or something that's been floating around in the right wing, echo chamber. I haven't heard this thing about the 10 terrorists before, and the fact that the wall, he keeps insisting that the wall is actually being built. Even Laura Ingraham on her show that night went, I wish he'd stop saying that the wall is being built, because it's not true. And I mean, that takes a lot for his state TV to actually challenge him on a matter of facts. So, I mean, he was really going strong. And Pelosi, I think that was sort of her, I don't know if they strategized this ahead of time. Probably not. But it's just you have to be prepared. And her point of view was, look, we're not going to get anywhere as long as you keep lying. And that's not going to work. And we can't operate off of your fantasy facts. And Schumer, on the other hand, decided to try and goad him. And he did, and got Trump. He backed Trump into a corner in a sort of a few good men style. You can't handle the truth. I want to know, did you order the code red? And Trump said, yeah, you're damn right I did. Essentially, by saying, yes, I will own the government shutdown. I'm proud to shut down the government over border security. And the look on Schumer's face, I mean, the smug sort of sense of satisfaction at that. I mean, it's like I'm going, Chuck, kind of, keep it all inside, because that doesn't look good. But nonetheless, Trump is on record now saying that, and not that it will matter to his people, but it makes, and all the reporting was that Republicans on the Hill were going, oh, geez, you just made it that much tougher for us to do what we have to do here. And that is, everybody wants to keep the government open before Christmas, right? I mean, they've extended it to the 21st. So, the idea that they're going to shut down the government just before Christmas and do all of this, they really don't want to. And Trump is out there making it more difficult. I don't know if that's in reality, if it's going to be that much harder for them to, they basically they will kick the can down the road, right? I mean, that's the logical thing. But, of course, if they kick it down past January 3rd, then you've got a Democratic House, and the whole thing changes. So they have a strong incentive to try to take care of this before Nancy takes over the House of Representatives.
Well, I mean, it's fascinating what the dynamic of the upcoming change is creating. That's one of them, right? That the Democrats have a certain amount of leverage with these budget talks because they're taking over the House in January. The other dynamic is, of course, having to do with SNAP and the Farm Bill and the War Powers Act. I want to take a break or come back. I want to talk about that. Then I want to talk about what's happening in terms of the leadership fights in the House, which seem to be resolved in terms of Nancy Pelosi. I want to talk about the committee chairmanships, which are resolved, but maintain an ongoing question about Chuck Schumer, in my mind. And then I want to talk about what you've been writing about in terms of Mike Pence and what the White House is saying about Mike Pence. We got to take a quick break. I'm Sam Seder. This is Ring of Fire Radio. Be right back.